Hello everybody, and welcome to our whirlwind tour of all things Doom of Dimensions, the next core booster for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game that'll be launching later this month on September 26th. I'm Jerome McHale. Unfortunately, I am flying solo today. Well, not quite solo. I still have my right-hand dragon here, Blue Eyes. But I'm afraid Billy is out today. I've heard that he's touring the Lambda factory right now. He's inspecting all the new RB parts. I've heard they even let him drive the Shepherd's Cook. And I'm not jealous at all. I'm not, really. And you shouldn't be either, because by the end of the first half of our program today, you'll know all about all of the new RB cards in Doom of Dimensions. But first, let's introduce one of the new themes from the next core booster set, the Radiant Typhoon. This theme is based on quick play spells, and in particular, one of the most famous quick play spells of them all, the original Spell and Trap Destroyer, Mystical Space Typhoon. Radiant Typhoon is a new wind monster theme that expels when your opponent has no spell or trap cards on the field, or when Mystical Space Typhoon is in your graveyard. In fact, the best way to achieve both of these goals at once is to play Mystical Space Typhoon to destroy your opponent's spell and trap cards. Let's take a look at these first three Radiant Typhoon monsters: Megala, Eldem, and Sven. These all let you special summon from your hand if you have Mystical Space Typhoon in your graveyard, or if your opponent controls no spell or traps. It's a useful effect that gives you an extra action you can take. It's not an activated effect, so you don't got to worry about any sort of K9 shenanigans from your opponent when you use these cards. And these three cards will all help you move cards around to where you need them to be in order to win the duel. Sven, in particular, is a card you want to keep a close eye on because it's also going to be the card that you see on the Doom of Dimensions regional game mat, which you'll be able to win starting at regional events right after the set comes out on the 26th. So just that weekend, if you want to see this amazing art on a full mat and get it for yourself, make sure to head on to a regional near you. And you can check Yu-Gi-Oh!-card.com for the list of all regionals to find one near you as well. But back to the Radiant Typhoon theme and how it works. The key monster for this theme is Radiant Typhoon Crocia. This is the one-winged beast in the theme. There are all sorts of different, a lot of different monster types in there. You got, Aqua, Pyro, Beast Warrior, all these different types that you don't really associate with wind so much. But there is one winged beast, and that is Radiant Typhoon Crocia. So instead of having an effect that lets you special summon her when your opponent has no spells or traps, she gets a special protection effect where she can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, while they have no spell and trap cards instead. But don't worry, she is still a very easy card to special summon. All you gotta do is special summon her after a quick play spell is activated. Well, except during the damage step, of course. You can special summon this card from your hand, and then if you do, you can add a Radiant Typhoon card and or a Mystical Space Typhoon from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So it's not one search, but two searches if you want them. And you don't even need to load up your deck with a lot of copies of Mystical Space Typhoon if you don't want to, because this can get them from the deck or graveyard. Although, with the way things are going as of late, you might want to play some more Mystical Space Typhoons than you think you might want to otherwise. In fact, one of the big advantages to playing with this theme is that it's very difficult to lose to some of those really powerful continuous traps that lock you out of certain game actions, and it helps disrupt decks like Yummy or Vanquish Soul that really want their field spells on the field to get them going, especially on your turn. But even something like starting off your turn and setting a Mystical Space Typhoon, and then using it to blast away your opponent's Vanquish Soul start when they activate it, can be a big advantage, because then that Mystical Space Typhoon activation can fuel some of your other effects as well. Keep an eye on Radiant Typhoon Crocia, because it's not just good in the Radiant Typhoon deck, it's also one of those cards that you can sneak into some other decks as well. Now, if you're thinking, which Radiant Typhoon card do I want to get out of my deck to go with it? Well, there are three quick play spells in the theme, and they all have an effect that let you set them back to your field if they're destroyed by Mystical Space Typhoon in particular. So you're also not going to be missing any ways to actually trigger the effect in the first place. Like, you can always just set something, use MST on your own card, and then reset it. It's almost like the White Forest cards in that respect, where if you send them away to use the White Forest effect, they come back. And hey, we just saw White Forest doing well at the World Championship not too long ago, so perhaps that sort of strategy has legs moving forward. But I think that the card you're probably the most interested in grabbing out of your deck off of Crocia alongside a Mystical Space Typhoon is the Continuous Trap Radiant Typhoon Mandate, which lets you play around with one of the classic misconceptions about how the card works. So as you know, Mystical Space Typhoon does not actually negate the card that it destroys. There are situations where, like, if it destroys a continuous trap, the effect ends instantly, or it doesn't resolve if it has yet to resolve, but it doesn't actually negate anything. Radiant Typhoon Mandate, on the other hand, if you activate Mystical Space Typhoon, or rather when you activate Mystical Space Typhoon, and this is key because you have to chain this effect directly to the activation of the spell card. When Mystical Space Typhoon is activated, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls and negate its effects. So, in a way, you can just kind of, if you squint really hard, you're pretending that Mystical Space Typhoon really can negate something, but it's actually the way that this trap card works. It is a very powerful effect, though. Even if you go ahead and use Mystical Space Typhoon to destroy your own Radiant Typhoon Mandate, for instance, you can chain the effect to negate a card your opponent controls, and then when the mandate is destroyed by your own Mystical Space Typhoon, you can set it back on the field, because it also has the same effect that the quick play spells do to set back to your field if destroyed by Mystical Space Typhoon. I actually rather like this theme a lot. It's a lot of fun, and anytime you get to sleeve up Mystical Space Typhoon, especially if you're a player who's been around for a long time, it's always a good time. So check this theme out if you get a chance, starting at your Doom of Dimensions premiere events 1 week before the release on September 19th. Moving on, let's talk about the new RB cards in Doom of Dimensions. Now, I mentioned at the start that there is a new third manufacturer entering the fray in the RB market named Lambda. Now, if you recall from the first set of RB cards, the first two manufacturers were Gaten and Valkan. So now Lambda is joining the fray, and they're not just bringing their own parts, they're bringing a whole new fighting machine called RB Shepherd's Crook. This new fighting robot focuses on precision strikes over raw power. So every monster you control will power it up, not just the ones it points to, and it's by a flat 500 points each, rather than how the Brute Blues gets the full attack points of whatever that it's pointing to. During your main phase, you can set an RB trap from your deck or graveyard instead. And you say, well, hang on, there aren't any RB traps. Well, there are in this set. There are, in fact, 2 of them. But we'll get to those in just a moment because there's one more effect on RB Shepherd's Crook as well. And this one helps you to keep your deck stocked with parts, as well as keep parts on the field for you to use their effects during your opponent's main phase. So the first effect is your main phase. The second one is your opponent's main phase. You can target 3 level 3 or higher RB monsters in your graveyard, put 2 of them on the bottom of your deck, and then the third one is special summon to the field in defense position. Now, it goes ahead and it gets trap cards out of your deck, RB trap cards. Let's take a look at those next. There are 2 of them, a normal trap and a counter trap. Last Stand is kind of like another 3 copies of Stage Landing. So Stage Landing, the spell lets you special summon any RB monster from your deck or extra deck. Last Stand also summons from your deck or extra deck or graveyard with a different name than all of the cards you control. So you can't stack up parts, but you probably don't want to do that anyways because you want to have a variety of answers to the game situations you're going to encounter. And it also puts the same lock on you from the extra deck, machine monsters, 1500 less attack. Same thing as Stage Landing, just as a trap. And also like Stage Landing, it has a graveyard effect as well, except this one helps you protect your monsters from cards or effects that target them. Now this is an activated effect. If your opponent activates it, then you chain this, banish it from the graveyard, negate that effect. You can only use one of the effects per turn though, so be careful about it. You're not going to be able to flip RB Last Stand, special summon something, and then use that graveyard effect in the same turn. But, a lot of the time, Stage Landing is going to be good enough because you can just banish it to protect your monsters from destruction. The other trap is the counter trap, RB Next Phase. Now this you use when your opponent activates a monster effect and you have an RB monster. Destroy a monster you control, negate the activation, destroy the card. Easy. But on top of all that, you also gain back 2,000 life points, which is crucial for this deck because you're paying down your life points quite a bit, and these extra 2,000 life points will let you use one or two more of the abilities from your various parts. Next up, let's take a look at the 3 new RB parts introduced in the set. 2 of them are from newcomer Lambda, and the third is from Gaten. Let's take a look at the Gaten part first. This is going to be the 3rd Gaten part, and it's a great one. The RB Gaten Pile Bunker. Just like the other Gaten parts, you can special summon it if you have no face-up monsters, or the only face-up monsters you control are RB monsters. It's got 1,500 attack and defense points, which is enough to basically double the base attack of the Brute Blues, but its effect is really devastating if you can pull it off. When an attack is declared involving an opponent's monster and the Brute Blues at points to this card, you can pay 1,500 life points, destroy all cards your opponent controls, and this card. Now it's important to note that this is when the attack is declared. So the attack is declared, you wipe your opponent's field. If they had any monsters on the field, which I sure hope they did because the attack had to be involving your opponent's monster, then a replay will happen, and you get to redeclare that attack directly. Now if you also have the field spell out, you can grab a part to replace the Pile Bunker to keep the Brute Blues' attack points up. And at the same time, remember that the Brute Blues attacks twice, and this replay doesn't eat up that extra attack. You still get both attacks, they're just both direct attacks now. Now what are you going to do if your opponent is refusing to field a monster against you? Well, there's a lot of ways that you can put a monster on their field, but there's also going to be an in-theme way to do so using the RB cards thanks to the new parts from Lambda, and in particular the RB Lambda Cannon. This card lets you look at your opponent's hand and pull a monster out of it and special summon it to their field with its effects negated. Not its parts negated, you've got all the parts. And after you do that, if you have the field spell out, you could then go ahead and get the other new part from Lambda, the RB Lambda Blade. The cannon in particular, I think, is going to be a big boon for RB decks going forward, because another way that it's useful is that it lets you look through your opponent's hand for cards like Nibiru, cards like Ash Blossom, although they probably would have used Ash Blossom by now if they had it. Just those disruptive monster effects in their hand, you can just pull them out of the hand and put them on the field before your opponent has a chance to use them. And because you're special summoning the monster, you can decide what position it's going to go in. Probably attack position so that you can push through a ton of extra damage on top of it. All 3 of these parts are very powerful, and I think you'll want to play at least one of all of them in your deck. But because of the way that the RB monsters effects works, there are some deck building considerations you can make that can let you play some other really powerful cards as well. If you take a look at all of the RB monsters, you'll find that none of them have effects that activate in your hand, in your graveyard, or in your banishment. So no monsters that activate in hand, graveyard, or banishment, which means that a card like Song of the Dominators from Alliance Insight is completely free to you. The downside is non-existent because you don't have any cards like that in the first place. Similarly, you can use some of the other Dominus cards as well. So Dominus Purge is a little trickier if you're going to use the new Lambda cards since they are dark, but your basic monsters, most of them anyways, are Earth and Wind. If you can come up with a strategy where you don't always need to access those cards, then something like Dominus Purge also becomes free for you. So you can end up with a situation where you have Songs of the Dominators. You can grab Dominus Purge. You're probably playing Infinite Impermanence as another trap card you can use from your hand. And in fact, Doom of Dimensions has another new Dominus card as well, Dominus Spiral. This card acts kind of like a compulsory evacuation device and will lock you out of light and dark monsters. Now you've got no light monsters at all. Your only dark monsters are going to be the new Lambda parts as well. But just because you can't use their effects doesn't mean you can't field them if you need to. And it only stops the activated effects. You'll still have continuous effects. So if you needed Shepherd's Crook, for instance, to get on the field and get big, it'll still be able to do that even if you can't use its other effects. With a lineup like that, you can get up to at least 12 different trap cards that you can play from your hand on your opponent's first turn. And this can be really advantageous if a lot of people are playing K9, because you're never going to use a monster effect in your hand or graveyard, and thus Izuna can't do her thing for free. You do still have to watch out for the normal summon for if your opponent has 2 or more cards in your hand, though. It's a little hard to empty your hand completely, but you could do it if you wanted to. So, RB fans, I think you're going to enjoy these new cards quite a bit, and we've got even more new cards where these came from coming up next. Don't go away. Welcome back, and welcome to your dooms. The mysterious assailants of the Archmage Academy and their power patron have been revealed in Doom of Dimensions. They're called the Dooms, and they fight using powerful mechanical exoskeletons and a wide variety of equipment as well. Take a look at the leader of the bunch. It's Dooms 12-0 Drastria. Now, the way these monsters work is you get them on the field, you get them equipped with something, and then you use their effect to summon their big machine, and then they get in the machine with all of their equipment. So take a look at how this works mechanically. So you have Drastria, you equip it, and then as a quick effect, you can special summon a Wind Machine Xyz monster from your extra deck with the same rank as the card's level, and if you do, you attach it and all of its equipped cards to that monster as material, and that's going to count as an Xyz summon. So unlike Zeus, where the Xyz monster that you use for just kind of transforms into Zeus, the way these effects work, it has the image of calling in the robot and then getting in the robot. I really like how it feels to actually play with these cards. Now, as for the robot in question, let's say we use our level 8 Drastria here, then we'll be grabbing Dooms 12 and Drastria, so the rank 8 monster from the extra deck. Now this monster, when it's Xyz summoned, it gets to snatch up another monster on the field and turn it into an equip spell. And in addition, it also has an effect that lets you negate the effects of monsters that your opponent activates on the field or in the graveyard. So if your opponent activates a monster effect on the field or graveyard, you detach material, negate the effect, then you get to equip a face-up monster your opponent controls to this card as an equip spell. So you've seen an effect kind of like this with Millennium Eyes Restrict that can gobble up monsters from the graveyard, but this, while it can negate things in the graveyard, it only gobbles them up to the field. Now the number of equip spells that you get on these cards is important, because once you have 3, you can unleash Jupiter, the power patron of destruction, which is also the card that you can win on the Doom of Dimensions premiere event weekend, starting on September 19th. So here's Jupiter, the power patron of destruction. Normally it'll take you 3 level 10 monsters, but you can also Xyz summon it by using a monster you control equipped with 3 or more equipped cards. And you get to transfer its materials over. Now once Xyz summoned, you can equip any number of equipped spells from your graveyard to this card that can equip it. So even though you'll lose all of the equipped cards, when you summon Jupiter, you can just grab them right back immediately. And it gains 3,000 attack points while it has an Xyz monster as material. Now, you note there that you don't have to place it on top of another Xyz monster. You can just put it on top of any monster you control that's equipped with 3 or more equipped cards. And if it has an Xyz monster as material, it'll gain another 3,000 attack. So that's 6,500 right there. And it doesn't take that much more to just flat out win the game with this card, because you can detach a material from it to special summon the Dooms from your graveyard, and then destroy another card on the field. So you have the equipped spells needed, it's at 6,500, you clear out your opponent's last defender, and then you bring back a monster from your graveyard that has 1,500 attack or more. I'm sure you can find a 1500 attack or more monster among these. In fact, there's two of them, both Drastia and Doom's V5 Amalthea as well. Both have enough attack points for you to finish things off just like that. And if you're wondering, well, what other kind of equip cards are there? One thing that I've always liked is the trap cards that turn into equip cards. All the way back to Blast with Chain, I've always found those sorts of cards endearing. Doom's also has one that I think your opponents will find a lot less endearing than flipping Blast with Chain while you have Gearfried the Iron Knight on the field. In fact, they'll wish that you had Gearfried on the Iron Knight so that this couldn't happen. So Doom's Destruction targets a Doom's Xyz monster you control and becomes an equip card with this effect. Cards cannot be added from the main deck to your opponent's hand except by drawing them. If you played back when Thunder Dragon's around, you might remember this as the sort of effect that Thunder Dragon Colossus had that made it such a devastating monster against decks like Sky Striker. It's kind of ironic, really, that Sky Striker's had such a resurgence, and now here comes Doom's Destruction to ruin its fun once again. So the Doom strategy it's a little weird when you first look at it. There's a lot of self-destruction of your own cards to go and get more cards out of the deck, which seems familiar, but the manner in which it uses its Xyz monsters is kind of different than everything else. You know, we're used to just slapping them on top of various things, but I kind of like the feeling of moving the monsters into the robot itself when it comes out. That is Dooms. Who will win the battle between the Archmages and the Dooms? Well, you'll just have to find out. Last but not least, it's time for an animation quadruple feature, featuring cards inspired by 4 different Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. Starting things off, let's take a look at the cover card from the set, DDDD, Dimensional King Arc Crisis. This is inspired by Declan's DDD deck from the Arc 5 animated series. And it's kind of like, you know how Zark was for Yuya and the different Odd Eyes monsters? Well, this is kind of a similar card for Declan and his DDD monsters. You need 4 fiends instead of 4 dragons. But like Zark, it's a fusion, a synchro, an Xyz, and a pendulum monster. What I think DDD players will be a little more excited about is this new Link 3 monster, DDD Sky King Zeus Ragnarok. It's a crucial new Link monster from the theme that can both protect and extend the intricate combos that the strategy is known for. But hey, you know, that fusion monster only has 4 Ds. What if we got to go to 5 Ds? Well, if that's more your speed, take a look at Bramble Rose Dragon. Bramble Rose Dragon needs a plant tuner, but it offers a strong burn effect that also withers away the attack of your opponent's monsters. You can even swap it out for the original Black Rose Dragon, and do so during your opponent's turn to clear the field. Just make sure that you do it as Chain Link 1 if that's how you want to use the card, because you'll need the summon to be the last thing that happened in order to use the original Black Rose Dragon's field clearing effect. There's even more plant cards and plant-related cards in this set to help you build a deck based on Akiza's strategy from 5Ds, and if you need even more of them, well, then you can pick up a lot of them all in one place with the legendary 5Ds decks that launches on November 7th. Next up, you can bridge the gap between the Gore's decks and Earth's G-Golems from Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains with Goki the Tyrant Ogre. Goki needs to be the base theme for this card to work, since its materials are a Goki Link monster and a warrior, dinosaur, or cyber monster. So you need a Goki for the first material, but then the second material can be another Goki, it can be a Dino Wrestler, or even a G-Golem to make it. And then finally, important characters from the current series of the Chronicles animation get new monster versions in this set. So Fleur-de-Lis appears here as Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis the Thunderbolt, and Ferajit of the Tri-Brigade appears as Tri-Brigade Arms Mouser. Now, if Billy were here, he would have a nice couple-minute soliloquy here on how good Tri-Brigade Arms Mouser is. So I'm going to need you to just imagine that, and just know that it's a really great card for Tri-Brigade decks. And as for Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis, if you've got a deck that really wants to see Dogmatica Punishment, or wants to resolve the extremely powerful Dogmatica Turgy, this is the perfect card for you. Doom of Dimensions launches on September 26th, and the regional season for it begins the very next day, where you can get that nice Sven game mat. In addition, on the weekend of the 19th during the premiere event, you can also get a cool game mat with this monster, the cover monster as well. It's a cool looking game mat right there. All in all, the fall is looking to be an exciting time in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. Hope everybody is getting excited for the next regional season, and I'm looking forward to seeing what decks you all cook up with the new booster set, Doom of Dimensions, launching on the 26th. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.